Dude, we have some important news hot off the presses. The sales numbers for all the pickup trucks and the big SUVs are out. We have it.
And Andre, is it good news or is it bad news?
It's a lot of bad news. And so I want to title this Winners and Losers because there's some bright spots. It's not all bad news. But unfortunately, some of the totals are going down.
Yeah, I mean, I took a quick peek at the numbers and they are pretty poor. So what's the time period for the sales report?
6 months, January through June 2024.
Okay.
We're going to talk about full-size trucks, mid-size trucks, and full-size SUVs. Let's start with the most popular, F-Series, Silverado, GMCs, and Rams, and Toyotas. So first, before we dig down, I want you to look at this number. So for the 6 months of this year, overall, for the full-size heavy-duty segment, we're down 2.5% over last year.
Okay, so we're not selling as many trucks as this period in 2023.
Right.
Now let's dive into some of the individual models. So I'm seeing some pretty big negatives. Walk me through what's going on here.
Yeah, so this is a little bit worrisome. So F-Series, this includes F-150, F-250, 350, 450, F-550. These are the Super Duties and F-150 trucks, down 8%. This is for the whole country, right? So this is not by region. And this is a little concerning for Ford.
Yeah, pretty substantial number down, considering that Ford is, a company that prioritizes itself in growth, and it's also a little concerning.
And on trucks too.
Yeah, because we saw a new refresh of F-150
Just now.
Yeah, during this period.
Yeah.
So kind of surprising that we see a new truck and we're still getting a negative change.
Well, what sometimes happens is when a new truck comes out, the factory has to retool itself. But this was a kind of a mild change, right? It wasn't a dramatic change. So this is surprising. But Tommy, could there be something else here? Could this be a cyber attack on the dealership software?
Right. So walk us through that. What happened to the dealership recently?
So basically, every dealer uses a very similar software package to maintain inventories and sales numbers and just their accounting software. It was kind of broken into and held at ransom, basically. And so I talked to two of the biggest dealers we work with here in Colorado, and they told me their sales numbers were not affected by this because they were able to find other solutions for sales, like on paper or some other systems, but they have to work overtime now because the software is back online, but they have to re-enter all the data.
Yeah, I talked to another dealer, kind of a similar thing. Yes, they were affected, and yes, it's costing them more money, but it's not necessarily costing them units sold. So it sounds like a lot of these dealers, they did have some pretty big stumbles, but they were able to start selling vehicles, moving vehicles off the lot.
During the cyber attack on their software. So, and this affected every brand, not just Ford.
So another thing worth noting is trucks are very expensive.
Yes.
And they're getting more and more and more expensive.
Yes.
And interest rates have been pretty high.
Yes.
So I think that certainly is impacting folks' sales. Chevy Silverado is actually up a little.
Yeah, so Chevy is doing pretty good, actually. This is heavy-duty Silverado and 1500, up 3.2%. But look at this, my friend. This is not good.
Down
Ram trucks.
19.5%.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a really big number.
So, and partially, I mean, the new Ram 1500 is here, so they're kind of switching over some of the production. And also the Ram heavy duty is aged. The Ford and GM heavy duty trucks have been updated more recently, and this truck hasn't been.
Interesting, yeah, but that's a pretty scary number for Ram. Stellantis took over a couple of years ago, and to some extent, we haven't seen a ton of new product.
And maybe this is another video altogether, right?
Yeah, right.
We can take a closer look at that maybe later.
Yeah, but Stellantis in a lot of other areas has also been struggling this first half of the year.
Once again, GMC is also up, so doing pretty well. Let's talk about Toyota.
Wow, look at that.
So the Tundra has recently been in the news because of a recall, right? But it doesn't seem like it's slowing down at all. In fact, it's growing year over year in a big way. 31.3%.
Yeah, so that news recently came out about the engine problems.
Yes.
But even still, look at those numbers. Those are really big numbers.
Now,
why is F-150 broken out from the Lightning broken out from the other F-Series trucks?
I did that because I wanted to show the Lightning numbers are basically included in this total here, but I wanted to separate it because look, the Lightning is actually growing in sales by 78.7%, almost, well, not quite doubling, but growing pretty heavily. And I think it has to do with some of the discounts recently on electric vehicles.
Incentives. Yeah.
But this still, for 6 months, I mean, that's not a huge number.
Right.
This is over 6 months.
Yeah. They sold more Lightnings than they did Cybertrucks, which is interesting.
Yeah. This number comes from a recall because Tesla doesn't report Cybertruck numbers separately right now.
Okay.
So there was a recent recall 2 weeks ago, and they recalled this many Cybertrucks that affected all of them, I think.
Okay.
So this number comes from that. And also Silverado sold 3,200, and Hummer EV, SUV, and truck sold almost 4,600.
Now this is interesting. So Hummer EV, in the same period in 2023, they sold 49.
Yes.
And so it's up 9,281%.
Okay. Well, they were just starting back then.
Yes. So
So
clearly Hummer is having its time in the sun right now. Actually, though, look, they sold more Hummer EVs than they did Silverado EVs.
yeah, this is also interesting. Silverado is just coming online with their electric truck. And the Nissan Titan is no more. They've discontinued it now, so it's kind of wrapping up. Sold 8,200 in the last 6 months.
Kind of surprised they sold that many of them.
Now let's talk about midsize.
Yeah, let's see what's
because
going on.
Tacoma is usually, the premier leader in the midsize pickup truck segment, unfortunately, Tacoma's has a new generation, right?
Right.
So whenever you have an all new generation of a vehicle like the Tacoma is, you see a decline in sales because the factory has to retool and completely restart.
So pretty big decline in
Yeah,
sales.
yeah. And look at this. GM, Colorado, and GMC Canyon combined are almost knocking on the door.
Right.
Right. Before, there was a huge difference between Tacoma and GM, but now it's much closer.
A more telling number is going to be this time next year.
Yeah.
When we're at full ramp up of Tacoma sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, big increase. So you're right on Colorado Canyon sales.
Yeah,
up 30%.
Both of them are growing. You can see
Yeah.
it here and down here. They're both growing hugely.
Frontier, look at that little guy go.
Also growing.
Highly underrated truck, the Frontier.
Yeah.
Not new for 2024, but the
No.
numbers are strong on Frontier.
But unfortunately, Stellantis, once again, Jeep Gladiator is down 14.1%. Not great. Honda is down too. I'm a little surprised that Honda is down. They used to sell about the same as the Jeep, but there is quite a decline here, and I'm not sure why.
Well, both of these are old, right?
Yes.
Gladiator is very much due for a refresh with the new Uconnect screen, and Ridge.
And also, plug-in hybrid is coming next year.
Yeah, I mean, so they did just tweak the Gladiator, but in my opinion, they didn't do enough to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about a more heavy refresh, maybe with the plug-in hybrid option. And then Ridgeline also was recently refreshed, but also a very slight refresh. And then Canyon and Ranger.
So Ranger, we have to talk about this
Yeah.
for a little while, because Ranger is still down in a big way, and it's at the very bottom of this list, Tommy. Usually they're somewhere in the first 3 spots, and this has to do with the new generation. The Bronco sales they used to prioritize the Bronco a lot,
Yep.
and the Bronco is built in the same factory as the new Ranger here in Michigan, and now they're just starting to ramp up the Ranger production. So I expect this number to grow, but right now they're dead last.
Yeah. So.
But overall, because of Tacoma decline, the entire segment is down.
I mean, really, that truck in a lot of ways dictates how the whole segment
Yes,
does.
yeah,
right?
it
'Cause
does.
It's such a big seller. I mean, you could see last year the same time, 116,000,
Yeah.
well over double. In some
Everybody
cases,
else.
triple or quadruple the next competitor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so let's wrap up with big SUVs.
'Kay.
These are truck-based SUVs. They're based on full-size platforms. GM pretty much used to control this, and they're still controlling it, but to a lesser extent. Overall, the segment actually grew, so this is kind of a bright spot. Full-size SUVs grew by 7.1%, but GM is down. And I think I have a hunch, but I'm not sure exactly why.
Yeah, 14%, which is interesting. We do have the new GM twins coming.
Well, you saw the Tahoe and Suburban,
Yep.
but this was many months ago.
Yes. And those should be on sale at some point this year, correct?
Yeah. We expect them this summer, but there may be some delay. We don't have a statement from GM about this, but this is affecting the Tahoe, the Yukon, the Suburban,
Yeah.
the Escalade. They're all the same platform,
Right,
right?
right.
So it's affecting every GM SUV.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, Ford is growing.
Yeah, Ford is up, and that's also a pretty old
Yeah,
SUV.
and it's about to be redesigned also.
Now, this is a head scratcher. What is popping off with Wagoneer sales right now?
They're more than doubled. So the Wagoneer sales grew 119%. Well, first of all, they're fully ramped up. They're building a lot of them, and I see a lot of them as fleet vehicles or like shuttles, luxury resort shuttles or hotel shuttles, rental vehicles. So I see a lot of them. Maybe that's where it's coming from.
I also think that Jeep priced this vehicle too high, and I'm seeing a lot of dealers put some cash on the hood on Wagoneers.
I believe so too.
Sequoia's following the Tundra trend too.
Yeah, Sequoia is growing. They didn't used to sell very many Sequoias, but since it's been redesigned, it's really coming into its own. So now over 2,000 of them per month. So now over 12,000 of
Nice.
them. So that's growing. Unfortunately, the Armada is declining,
Yes.
and it's also pretty old,
Yes.
old in the tooth.
Same thing with QX80. We just drove the brand new QX80.
Yeah.
So
I expect this number to grow
Yeah.
on the QX80.
wow, they really don't sell a lot of LXs, do they? Only
And this one was
3,000.
affected by the recall, like the Tundra.
Yeah, but that's such a small number compared to even
That's
Navigator.
that's over 6 months.
Yeah, but look, I mean, 19,000 Escalades in the same period. Lexus sold only 3,000 LXs.
Yeah, but the whole segment is up a little bit. So this is kind of a bright spot. I want to close on a good note. The good note is this.
Maverick,
Maverick is going like hotcakes.
gangbusters.
81.4% increase over last year.
Jeez.
And I believe this is due to primarily they shifted some focus from Bronco Sport and Escape towards the Maverick because they're built at the similar, same facilities. They shifted focus towards the Maverick, and they're selling them. Every one they produce is basically sold.
Great little truck, still priced pretty well. And there's a new one that we've seen spy shots of, which are coming shortly. But clearly the demand for the Maverick is still off the hook. Santa Cruz demand, though, maybe not as great.
No, it's down 10%.
Down 10%, yeah.
And I think my main success story here is that for about 30 grand, you can get a really well-equipped all-wheel drive Maverick. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
With the full-size trucks and the mid-size trucks, you have to pay 50, 60, and then sometimes 70, 80, 90, $100,000 for some of those trucks. This is for 30K. You can get a really nice one.
Yeah. Well, folks, we'd love to hear what you think of these truck sales. It's been a pretty rocky first 6 months, I think, for a lot of these makers.
Yeah.
And I think what we're seeing is vehicles on the more affordable end of the spectrum, like the Maverick, doing really well.
Yeah.
Mid-size trucks seem to do better than full-size. And I just think that because a lot of folks are getting priced out of the full-size and heavy-duty segment, especially with interest rates being where they're at, that the little trucks, at least if you can build an affordable truck and build it in large volume, folks will line up for it.
There you go. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time at oldtfl.com.
Thanks, guys.